All right, everyone, welcome back. Ready for another deep dive. Today, we're tackling those tricky AWS data engineering interview questions.
Yep. We're going to uncover what hiring managers are really looking for.
It's like a cheat sheet for your next interview. Think of it as your secret weapon.
Exactly right. And we're going to break down 10 of the most common questions.
Plus, we're going to go beyond just those level answers.
That's right. We'll look at the why behind these questions so you can really stand out.
Plus, we'll sprinkle in some real world tips to boost your confidence.
Sounds good. You ready to dive in?
I am. Let's start with a classic. Explain the differences between Amazon S3, Amazon Redshift, and Amazon IDS.
And of course, when to use each for data engineering tasks.
Right. Seems straightforward enough.
But there's a lot to unpack here.
There is. This question is about more than just knowing those definitions.
It really is.
It's about understanding, the strengths and weaknesses of each service.
Exactly. And how they fit into the bigger picture.
Yeah. So imagine it like this. S3 is your massive warehouse for raw data.
It's cost effective too.
Like that storage unit where you just keep everything.
Old furniture, holiday decorations, you name it.
Makes sense. Okay, so then we've got Redshift.
Ah, Redshift. Think of it as that high performance sports car for data analysis.
Oh, I like that.
Built for speed handling those complex queries on structured data.
So if you're analyzing like sales data to understand customer behavior,
Redshift can crunch those numbers in a flash.
give you those insights right away.
Exactly.
So we got S3 for storage, Redshift for analysis. What about RDS?
RDS is your reliable workhorse for those transactional applications. Think of it as the engine powering your online store.
Gotcha.
It manages that product catalog, processes those orders, and keeps everything running smoothly.
I see.
And, a strong candidate will not just define them, but also provide specific use case scenarios.
Yeah. Give me an example of what someone might say in an interview.
Sure, let's say if I needed to store years of website clickstream data, I'd choose S3 for its scalability and cost effectiveness. But to analyze that data and find trends, I'd use Redshift to handle those complex queries quickly. And if I were building a system to manage user accounts and transactions, RDS would be that reliable choice.
I love how that example shows not just the what, but the why behind each service.
Exactly. Now we've got that foundation of data storage covered.
Let's move on to building those data pipelines.
All right, question number 2. How would you design a scalable data ingestion pipeline using AWS services?
This one feels a bit more complex.
It does.
What are the core concepts someone needs to nail to really answer this one well?
You really need to demonstrate a systematic approach to data movement.
Okay.
So imagine you're designing a system that collects real-time data.
From multiple sources.
Yes, you process it and then store it for analysis.
I see.
You need to show, services like Kinesis
Okay.
for handling those data streams, Glue for transforming the data, and of course S3 for storing it.
It's like building a network of pipes to efficiently move all that data around.
Perfect analogy.
What are some common pitfalls candidates should avoid here?
Well, a common mistake is jumping straight into those specific AWS services.
Without first outlining the architecture of the pipeline.
Exactly.
Okay. It's crucial to start with the big picture. Gotcha. The data sources, the processing steps, that final destination, and of course the potential for growth.
So it's showing that strategic thinking, not just listing services.
Exactly. A savvy candidate might even sketch out their pipeline on a whiteboard. Oh, I love that. Shows you're thinking like a data engineer.
Absolutely.
Okay, question 3 takes us a little deeper into processing with this question. What are the differences between AWS Glue and AWS EMR? When would you use one over the other?
Right.
I imagine cost is a big factor here.
Absolutely. Glue being serverless can be way more cost effective.
Especially for those simpler ETL tasks?
Exactly. Those that are triggered sporadically.
Okay.
It's like taking a taxi. You pay for the distance you travel.
I see.
But EMR is like renting a car.
Okay.
Or have more control and flexibility, but you've got that overhead of managing the cluster.
So Glue is perfect for those crisp trips?
Yeah,
While EMR is better for those long road trips where you need more control.
you got it.
I see.
If you need to run complex data transformations or leverage those custom libraries, or you have a consistently high workload, EMR might be the better choice.
Okay.
But for straightforward ETL tasks, Glue's simplicity and that pay-per-use model can save you time and money.
So it's all about those trade-offs.
Exactly.
Speaking of trade-offs, let's talk about building data lakes.
Right.
Question 4. How would you structure an optimized data lake in Amazon S3 while ensuring security, performance, and cost efficiency?
Ah, yes, the classic balancing act.
It is. This question hits data organization, security, and cost.
It does.
A candidate needs to demonstrate they can think about the whole picture.
I agree.
So for organization, what should they be thinking about?
Well, you want to think about partitioning the data in S3 by date or by source,
Okay.
using a consistent data schema and leveraging metadata for searchability?
So it's not just dumping everything into S3.
Definitely not.
It's about making it easy to find what you need when you need it.
Exactly.
What about security?
Security is critical. A strong candidate will talk about things like access control,
Using IAM roles?
yes, and encrypting data at rest and in transit with KMS,
Okay.
and implementing proper security policies.
So they need to be familiar with those best practices.
Absolutely. And the shared responsibility model.
Right. So it's not just about building it, it's about making sure it's secure.
Right.
Fort Knox level security.
Exactly.
And then finally, cost efficiency. How do you balance performance with keeping costs down?
Well, this is where understanding S3 storage tiers comes in.
Okay.
A good candidate will discuss lifecycle policies to move data between tiers.
So frequently access data in a more expensive tier?
Yes, and then less frequently access data in a cheaper tier.
Right.
They'll also mention cost-effective storage classes like Glacier for archiving.
So using S3's features strategically can really optimize costs?
Yep.
Now let's zoom in on Redshift performance.
Okay.
Question 5. How would you optimize queries in Amazon Redshift to handle large-scale data efficiently?
All right.
For those who may not be familiar with Redshift, what are the key concepts they need to understand?
Think of Redshift as a database that's specifically designed for analytical queries.
Okay,
To maximize performance, a candidate needs to understand things like distribution keys.
which determine how data is spread across the cluster.
Yes, exactly. And then sort keys, which dictate how that data is physically stored on disk.
These concepts can be a bit abstract for someone new to data warehousing.
They can.
Any analogies you can offer to make them more concrete?
Sure. Imagine you have a library with millions of books.
Okay, I like this.
Distribution keys are like organizing those books by genre fiction, nonfiction, biography.
Right,
So you know exactly where to look when you need a specific type of book.
I see.
And then sort keys are like alphabetizing the books within each genre.
So you can find a specific title even faster.
Exactly.
So essentially, a candidate needs to show they understand how to structure data in Redshift to make those queries run as efficiently as possible.
Exactly. They could also mention things like using materialized views.
Which pre-compute and store query results?
Yes. And understanding query plans to identify those bottlenecks.
It's about being strategic with data layout and knowing how to troubleshoot those performance issues.
Precisely.
Now let's switch gears again and dive back into security best practices for those data pipelines. Question 6. What are the best practices for securing an AWS data pipeline? How would you manage IAM roles, encryption, and access permissions?
Okay.
What are some common pitfalls candidates stumble into with this one?
Well, it goes beyond just ticking off a checklist of those security features.
It does. It requires a deep understanding of security principles.
Yes, not just a list of tools.
Okay.
They should talk about the principle of least privilege.
Which means granting only the necessary permissions.
Exactly, to users and to services.
Okay.
They should discuss using IAM roles to manage access to different resources.
And enforcing multi-factor authentication?
Yes, for sensitive actions.
So thinking like a hacker.
Right. Anticipate those vulnerabilities and build that defense in depth strategy.
Okay.
They should also be familiar with tools like AWS config.
For monitoring compliance with security policies.
Right, and Security Hub for that centralized view of their security posture.
Being proactive about security rather than reactive.
Exactly.
Okay, let's shift gears one more time and back into the world of serverless.
All right.
Question 7. Can you describe a scenario where you would choose AWS Lambda over AWS Glue for data processing?
Sure.
I'm curious how someone might highlight the strengths of Lambda here.
A great example would be when you have real-time data ingestion
Okay.
and you need to perform simple transformations on the fly.
Give me a specific example.
Let's say you have sensor data streaming into Kinesis.
Okay.
And you want to filter out irrelevant data before storing it in S3.
I see.
Lambda can be triggered by those Kinesis events.
Okay.
Process the data in real time and only store the relevant information.
So Lambda's event-driven nature makes it great for that real-time processing.
It does.
But couldn't Glue also be used for those simple transformations?
It could.
Okay.
But Lambda's taper-use model can make it much more cost-effective.
For those quick event-driven tasks?
Exactly.
If you only need to process data for a few milliseconds each time an event happens, Lambda's the way to go.
Right.
You pay only for those milliseconds.
Precisely.
Glue, on the other hand, requires you to spin up a job, even if it runs for a very short time.
That's right.
So Lambda is like ordering a single slice of pizza instead of the whole pie.
I like that.
Sometimes you just need a quick bite.
Makes sense.
Speaking of real-time data, question 8 takes us into the world of streaming.
All right.
How would you build a real-time analytics solution in AWS? What services would you use, and how would you handle data latency and scalability?
Okay.
This is where AWS's real-time processing power really shines.
It does.
What key services should a candidate mention here?
A strong candidate will definitely discuss Kinesis for that data ingestion,
Okay.
potentially Kafka for stream management,
All right.
and services like Flink or Spark streaming for real-time processing.
Gotcha.
They might also mention data visualization tools like QuickSight.
To create those real-time dashboards.
Ex-
So it's about building a pipeline that can handle that continuous flow of data.
and provide those insights as they happen.
What are some of the challenges a candidate should acknowledge?
Well, they need to show they understand the complexities of real-time data,
Okay.
minimizing latency, ensuring that data consistency,
Right.
handling that potential back pressure when the data volume suddenly spikes.
It's like trying to drink from a fire hose.
Yes, you need the right tools and techniques to manage that constant flow.
Now let's get down to brass tacks. Question 9. How would you design a cost-efficient data pipeline in AWS without sacrificing performance?
The eternal struggle.
It is finding that sweet spot between performance and budget.
Absolutely.
What does a great answer sound like here?
This question is all about showcasing an understanding of those AWS pricing models and cost optimization strategies.
Okay.
A candidate might discuss using spot instances.
For non-critical workloads?
Right, taking advantage of reserved instances for predictable workloads.
Okay.
And right-sizing EC2 instances to avoid overspending.
Right.
They should also mention S3 storage tiering and those lifecycle policies.
Moving data between different storage classes based on access.
Exactly.
So it's about being mindful of costs at every step of the pipeline.
Yes, from ingestion to storage to processing.
And finally, let's talk about troubleshooting. That often overlooked, but super crucial aspect of data engineering.
It's essential.
Question 10. What tools and techniques would you use to monitor and debug data pipelines in AWS?
Okay.
CloudWatch, AWS, X-Ray, Athena Query, Performance Insights.
Lots of options there.
It's not just about building, it's about keeping it running smoothly.
Absolutely.
What does a well-prepared candidate sound like here?
They'll show they know CloudWatch for monitoring logs, metrics, and setting up alerts.
Okay.
They might also mention X-Ray for tracing requests through the pipeline and identifying bottlenecks.
I see.
And they could discuss using Athena to query and analyze log data stored in S3.
To gain deeper insights into that pipeline behavior.
Precisely.
It's like having a toolkit ready to diagnose and fix any problem. Ensuring that data pipeline is humming along.
Yes.
Wow. We covered a lot of ground today.
We did.
We went beyond definitions and explored the real world behind these AWS data engineering interview questions.
Remember, these questions are just the starting point.
They are.
The interviewer really wants to see how you think, how you approach problems, and how much you love data engineering.
So to all those aspiring data engineers out there, don't just memorize answers.
No,
Dive deep into the concepts, understand the why, and let your passion for data shine.
I agree completely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of AWS data engineering.
Hope you all enjoyed it.
We hope you gained some valuable insights to help you ace those interviews.
Good luck out there.
Until next time, keep learning and keep building.
See ya soon.